We're going to talk about seedlings, starting seedlings inside, and how you can really benefit those seedlings and really have twice as healthy plants, plants that are twice as large. And we're going to talk about some myths about seeding, like you don't need to give seedlings nutrients. That's just not true. So I'm going to cover a bunch of stuff, so hold on one second. Hey guys, so let me discuss what we're going to talk about today a little bit. Number one, watering plants. There's a special way that you can water plants that's really kind of easy and kind of nice. I'll show you a tip on that. Let's talk about those seed trays that a lot of people use. They're not bad, but I'll show you a better way to do it, especially if you're growing larger plants. We're going to talk about seedling depth, how deep you should plant seed. That's something that's really important that a lot of people don't focus on. We're going to talk about nutrients. A lot of people say you don't need to fertilize seedlings, and I disagree, especially if you use this larger tub method. I think it's critical, and I'm going to show you inside. I'll take you inside and I'll show you plants that are twice as large as other plants at 3 weeks, just because we gave them the right nutrients and we added biochar and we did good things to them. What else are we going to cover? I'll talk about the heating pad. I'll show you my heating pad. We'll talk a little bit about, not much, a little bit about LED grow lighting. And then I'm going to come out here and I'm going to start to make some super compost, the new Dirt Booster Super Compost, which absolutely is a key element. You will never, ever, ever use fertilizer again in your vegetable garden. Ever. We've proven that for 2 years in a row now. So I'll show you that. I'm about to start making some up. So let me go inside and we'll start talking about the seeds, and then I'll come back out and show you me making some of this Dirt Booster. A bunch of different questions that people have asked and subjects that people get confused about. We'll start this inside and then I'll go out and show you the Dirt Booster. Let's start with subject number one. Subject number one is going to be seed depth. And this is a mistake that I have made for years and years. Take your finger and you stick a hole, and seed, cover it up. Wrong. You should plant your seed 2 to 3 times the height of the seed. So that's easy to comprehend when you're talking about something like a squash seed or a sunflower seed. You know, it's maybe 1/4 of an inch, so I'm going to plant it maybe 1/2 inch deep. Not much at all. But when it comes to things like tiny seed, like lettuce seeds and carrot seeds, they're like dust. And you literally put it on top of the soil and then just get some fine material and just put like 1/8 of an inch over it and then water it. That's it. The rule, 2 to 3 times the depth of the seed, the height of the seed. Why is that? It's because seeds only have so much energy. They only have so much energy to drive up through the soil. And one of the number one reasons, besides lack of watering or too much watering, is seed depth. So plant your seeds a lot shallower and plant them based on the height of the seed. Make sense? That's rule number one. Rule number two is the size of the container. These little containers, sometimes they have these peat containers, or you'll have trays that have a bunch of these little holes inside of it, and they're fine. Again, I'm not going to knock them. They're fine if you're going to have maybe seeds inside. You're going to start them for maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks. But there comes a point that there's just too much. There's too much root system in there for this. Now compare these two. Which do you think would be better off? Which do you think would be better off for a seed environment? If you're going to have a seed start inside and it's going to be in here for 3, 4, 5, even 6 weeks, you're going to need a little bit larger container. Now this may be too large. This is a 6 inch, but they make these in 4 inch. And they're great containers for starting seeds. Let me give an example. These are nursery pots, and you can buy a stack of 120 of them for 18 bucks. That's like what, 14 cents a piece or something like that. I'll put a link in the description below where you can order these things off Amazon, and they're great. They're cheap. Now here's the other reason why I like larger pots. It's called root shock. If I were to plant something in this little container, and you've seen this on plants that you've bought, you pull the container out and what do you see? Nothing but roots. They call it root bound, but the roots don't have anywhere to go. You're taking now those exposed roots and you're putting them into a cold soil or a soil that might have fungus or disease. And here's the difference. If I take this and plant it, in other words, just all roots, versus adding 3 or 4 inches of surrounding natural healthy soil, and then plant the whole soil and root ball, that's what I like to do. So instead of having solid roots and planting the plant, now I'm planting it with healthy soil inside of my garden soil. And let me tell you what, there's no shock. You have much better success, and especially much larger plants the first month or two. They get a much better kickoff growth. Now let's talk about the soil, the type of soil. A lot of people freak out about their seeding soil. This is actually just regular garden soil from Lowe's or Home Depot. And then I mix in a little bit of peat to it. And that's what I use for my base soil. Now, what I'm going to add to this base soil is I'm going to add in the Dirt Booster Super Compost. Now, that'll have a ton of biochar, humic acid. It'll have nutrients. It'll have fungus. It'll have bacteria. Everything that your plant wants. And it'll just boom, it'll blow up. I'll show you here in a minute. That's what I use. I just take a little bit of this and sprinkle it on top on shallow seeds, by the way. But it's pretty cheap. You get a big old bag of it, you can fill it up. Do I disinfect my soil? No, I don't. I don't worry about it. The air is full of mold and spores and fungus. I just don't worry about disinfecting my soil. Let's talk about nutrients. I hear this all the time. Seedlings don't need fertilizer. They don't need nutrients. It's just not true. The first initial growth period, stage 1, which is germination up until they have leaves, correct. They produce their own energy and nutrients. They don't need it. But right after that, what are they looking for? They're looking for sunlight, and they're going to grow rapidly towards the sun, right? Because they want to make nutrients through photosynthesis. But they also want the nutrients from the ground right away. So that's why it's important to have the nutrients available to those plants. And let me tell you what, you will have twice the growth on your young plants, and they will be much healthier if you provide this super compost type environment inside of it. Let me give you an example. Okay, this pot over here, now I have arranged this differently today for this video, but this tray over here, we took red clay soil. And in that red clay soil, we actually mixed in probably about 50% of this garden soil. Then we put the seeds in, and the seeds germinated. This tray over here, what's the difference? We took this exact same soil, and we added about 20 or 30% of the Dirt Booster compost mixed into that. Planted the seeds the same day, and this is the difference in results. Now what's interesting is this tray germinated 2 days before this tray. I don't know why. I don't know if it was compaction, seed depth, temperature, water, what. But for some reason, this tray germinated 2 days before this one. But look at the size difference of the plants. It's amazing. These are 2 to 3 times the size of these plants over here because they're growing in this super nutritious soil. And that's why I want a little bit larger plant, so when I transplant it, it's already in that and continues that high growth. I'm going to close up on some of these. Now this may shock you, but this tomato plant here is the exact same tomato plant as this plant here. I'm going to grab the camera real quick. Hold on. This tomato plant here, right there, is the exact same tomato plant as this tomato plant here and that tomato plant right there. Again, see it? See those? And then see these. Sunflower seeds. These sunflower seeds, exact same conditions, same planting time compared to these right here. Look at this. They're just absolutely enormous and gorgeous compared to those. Even something like the kale, which came up later. I don't know if I can get to it. But see that kale there? And then look at that kale down there. Here's a real good example. This is a different variety tomato right here. These two tomato plants versus the tomato plants down over here. Again, they're the same plants. Everything is the same. Only difference being that we provided what the plants want. Nutrients, microbes, soil microbes, the biochar to hold all that together to give it life. twice as much growth. Absolutely incredible. And that's what we showed the past 2 years in our gardens. So yes, nutrients are important. Some people say water bottom up. I guess you can do that to start, but then get rid of that water and then water top down. Nature waters top down, and it does it for a reason. When you water top down, a lot of salts and minerals can actually just keep evaporating up and build up on the surface and cause damage to your plants. So you want that natural wash. The problem comes in is when you use a watering can, it can get real violent, real splashy, and real heavy, and it's just a mess. So these, I'll put a link to these. You can use a ketchup bottle. These, the only problem with this is you have to buy like 8 of them, but they're still at like 50 cents a piece. It's just a little squirt bottle. I fill it up with water, but man, I can be really precise. I just go in here and I just water exactly what I want. And when I hold it, I just sort of press with my thumb a little bit. And then I can go in here. I'm not spraying the foliage. I'm just going right into the soil and delivering exactly the amount of water that I want. So I love these water bottles for watering all this. I water every day, a light watering every day, and flush it down. And that just seems to work for me. Sometimes I'll switch over to every other day. It just depends on how everything, you can just tell when your plants need water. All right, so we covered seed depth, we covered watering, we covered nutrients, we covered container size, and I'll run outside real quick and I'll talk about covering and should you cover your seeds to start them. But I also want to talk real quickly about the table I have here and the setup of the light. This window is the only window in my house that gets great sunlight all summer, all afternoon long. And so this little table I have here is a 48-inch little folding table from Walmart, and it's great. I can adjust the leg height and the actual table height. So it's at the bottom of my sill. I love that. I also have one LED light here. Just for support. You don't have to have that, but it does help. These plants love a ton of sunlight. So yes, a grow light will help. Now let's talk about the heating pad. I have on here a heating pad, and it's a automatic system. And so I have a temperature probe. The temperature probe sticks into the soil. You may have just heard it kick on. When I pulled the probe out, it actually kicked on because the temperature dropped down. So this will keep this at, I think I have it set to 75 degrees, and it warms the soil from the bottom up. I'll stick it back in. And I like to keep my soil at about 75 degrees while the germination process is happening. So let's talk about these trays for a minute. So everyone sees these little trays. This type of tray holds those little tiny peat containers, or you can get the trays with they already have the little holes in them. And then what you're supposed to do, according to the instructions, is you're supposed to cover this up and make a little humidity chamber. That's always where I have problems when I do this. What ends up happening is you get a very moist, very damp, humid, sort of stale environment, in my opinion. And that's where I have lost an entire seed start. I start to get this fungus grow on top of it. So again, this doesn't replicate what nature really does. I like to try and replicate what nature does, which is plant your seed where that seed is going to kind of grow so you don't have to disturb it. So what does that mean? A little bit larger container if you can. Number 2, wet it from the top down. I water my seeds very lightly every day until they germinate. The water will drain down, flush it out, and then once the seed grows, you're flushing away excess salt, excess minerals, and as it wants those nutrients, where are those nutrients? Those nutrients are down deeper in the soil, and it'll throw roots down deeper in. I did an experiment this year with the super compost soil, and we actually covered them up just like that, and one of the trays turned complete fuzzy white, and everything died off. So I'm not a big fan of creating humidity chambers with those lids. That's one of the things I wanted to address. I don't use them. I would rather use the little ketchup bottle method and just come by and just every day, just lightly water, lightly water, lightly water. Keep it moist every single day until they germinate. And then you know when to water. When the soil starts to dry out, add some water to it. I don't keep it in a water bath. That's a big mistake. A lot of people just keep it inside of a water bath and just let it sort of feed itself. Not a good thing. Again, that's not what nature does. When nature does that, everything sort of rots and dies. So I say stay away from those tops. So I'm getting ready to make some of this dirt booster compost. And because it's February and it's too cool, I actually could do it. It's warm enough. Your base material, whatever it is, needs to be about 80 degrees. So you're going to put it out in the sunshine. Now I use black cow compost manure. I've actually just used regular garden soil, but I'm going to use black cow compost. And what I've got is I've actually got an old heating pad, large heating pad, in a plastic bag, heating up this soil for a couple hours now. And I've got it up, the bottom of it is about 100 degrees. You've got to have a warmer soil to get this process. Microbes don't like to be active in the cold. So normally I would do this in the springtime outside, but I have to replicate these conditions. So I've got just plain black compost manure. I'm going to mix in the dirt booster layer by layer, and then I'm going to spray it with a microbial pack. Let it sit and just keep mixing that and repeating that process over and over. Then I'm going to stir it up, and what's going to happen is those microbes are going to start to fire off. The fungi, there's just billions and billions of fungi and good bacteria that are going to be inside of here, and they're going to digest the light colored material in here is actually a corn concentrate and dry molasses particles. And the bacteria and fungi are going to eat that and absorb it and put off a whole bunch of heat, and they're going to release all kinds of nutrients into the soil. And then the black particles are the biochar that are going to hold on to that microbes and fungi and all those nutrients. It's a win-win situation. It's very easy to do. So I've got this up to 100 degrees at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start to take some of this out. The first thing I need to do is I need to mix up my microbial pack that comes with the dirt booster. And I'm just going to pour that into just warm tap water inside of a garden sprayer, just like this. And then I'm going to shake it. And just put dirt booster on top of here. And then I'm going to spray it. The manure on there. Some more of the dirt booster. I'm going to gently go in here. I'm getting everything all dirty. I'm just going to kind of gently mix it up. It's hard to do it in one of these containers. It's so much easier in the yard. As you're mixing, Go ahead and spray it some more. So now, let's take the temperature, 75 degrees. So the top of the pile or middle of the pile is 75 degrees. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that heating pad on because normally you don't have to add heat if you're outside, but I want to make sure that this soil stays warm and stays up about 75 to 80 degrees overnight. And I'll show you what it looks like. Now what's going to happen is all those light brown corn and molasses particles will start to turn white and they'll start to disappear because everything will be being digested and it's going to go through a process called humification. And let me tell you what, this is the key to gardening. One bag of dirt booster will probably make 2 bags of black cow compost. And that's enough for a pretty good sized garden because you're only really focusing this around the plants. Remember that. So again, make sure you watch all those videos and I'll come out in the morning and we'll see what happens. It's like 6 o'clock in the morning and one of the girls had to go out for a walk, so I made my coffee, took a shower, got up. So let me open this container. I already did. And all this steam hit me in the face, but I want to show you. Now the heating pad I'm using only stays on for 2 hours and automatically shuts off. So the heating pad has not been on since about 10 o'clock last night. This is all naturally produced heat. And last night, look at all that steam. Whoa, holy cow. Afraid my lens is going to fog up. So last night I took an old sweatshirt and just threw an old sweatshirt over it just to sort of hold in some of that heat, but it is a steaming away. So it's 49 degrees outside here. Let's see what we got here. Wow, look at that. That is cranking. That is just cranking. Now your pile obviously may not get this high. That's the highest I've ever gotten one. Normally I can maybe get them up to 130. But that is cranking. And you can start to see the white fuzz. See this white fuzz starting in here? That is incredible. Alright, well, I'm going to leave it and I'll come back out and stir it a little later. But this is how we make that super compost. It's full of good fungi, good bacteria. It's going to be full of nutrients, everything. Now this has to sit. This pile has to sit. I will turn it, put a little bit of water when I turn it to make sure it doesn't dry out. Give it some oxygen and do that until usually in about 2 or 3 days. Because that flaky dirt booster corn concentrate is so thin, it'll eat through it within like 2 or 3 days. So that'll be ready to use to add to my potting soil in 2 to 3 days. That is just so cool right there. Hey guys, so 150 degrees, that's a new record for me. I'm always trying to, let's see how high we can get that dirt booster going. Dirt booster is all set for production. I'm thinking they're going to start running it next week and we'll probably be up here pretty soon. Should be, I think, just in time for gardening season. It'll be on Amazon. If you want to learn more, go to dirtbooster.com. You can learn more about it and see some of the videos over there. My son's coming over today. We're going to be probably doing a first cut of the green for you guys. Just because it's looking a little bit shaggy, we'll do some yard cleanup. I'm going to do kind of a pre-scalp. Maybe clean this yard up a little bit because it's looking kind of nasty, and we'll go from there. So hit subscribe. We got about 30 videos coming out in the next 3 weeks. So hold on, Doc.